All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. We've got a awesome lineup today. We are going to be talking about how to protect your apps, and we're going to be talking about we've called it before and after DoControl. We're going to go through some use cases of companies that are using, various SaaS apps, Google, Slack, Dropbox. We'll go through a whole bunch. And talk about the problems that they've had with securing them and making sure that they're on top of that, and how it looks after as well with the product. So we've got Corey and Lewis here. Corey's runs our product marketing team, and Lewis is he's our sales engineer team, and he's going to do the demo part, and Corey's going to kind of walk us through the kind of set the baseline where we are, and without further, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. And we are recording this, so everybody will get a copy of this after we're done. If you do have questions, right there, you can see the question mark button. Just click on that and then type in your questions, and we will get to those. All right, take it away, Corey.
Thanks for the introduction, Sam. Let's go ahead and share my screen. All right, so as Sam mentioned, my name is Corey O'Connor, Director of Product Marketing. Thank you all for joining today's presentation, and I am co-presenting with Lewis Miller, who is our amazing Principal Solutions Architect, our sales engineer. Really excited to cover today's topic on Zero Trust data access. But before we get into it, I wanted to just cover a quick overview of who we are at DoControl, what we do as a company. So at DoControl, we help organizations prevent data breaches in the most popular SaaS applications. And we try to find that perfect balance between security and enabling the business. And we do that through providing security teams with the automated self-service tools that they need for data access monitoring, orchestration, and remediation within these SaaS applications. We're backed by investors such as RTP Global, Stage One Ventures, Cardamom Capital, and one of the most well-known, well-regarded endpoint detection and response vendors, CrowdStrike. They have an early-stage investment fund called the CrowdStrike Falcon Fund. So CrowdStrike is both an investor as well as a technology partner. So that's at the highest level, a bit about what we do at DoControl. Obviously, as we go through the presentation, we'll get into a bit more detail there. But let's just look at the agenda for today's webinar. So the first thing is we're going to, provide some context on Zero Trust. I think most of you are familiar with this concept. It's a concept that's been in the market for quite some time now. So we're going to cover the context of Zero Trust and focus on the next phase of it. The second thing is we're going to cover the current state, the data access problem that exists that faces organizations of all sizes and types. We're going to introduce a new guiding principle that we're calling Zero Trust data access. We're going to hand things over to Lewis to do a solution demonstration and present some of the use cases that we talk about as part of the webinar. And then, of course, we'll save some time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so Zero Trust. Again, this is something that's been out for over a decade. It was initially coined by an industry analyst named John Kindervag, who was with Forrester. And it was really centered on the belief that organizations should not automatically trust anything inside or outside its perimeters. Instead, they need to verify anything and everything that's trying to connect to systems and applications before access is granted to that user. So when you fast forward to today, most organizations, as I mentioned, have adopted this mindset. Initially, it was a concept. Now you have organizations like Google, BeyondCorp, Enterprise, and NIST has created an actual reference architecture. So it's no longer a concept. There are reference architectures and blueprints for organizations to start with, to try to create their own zero trust security program. So they're well underway into executing against those strategies of never trusting, always verifying all of the identities that are, within the IT estate. And when you look at the early days of zero trust, things were very much focused on micro segmentation and establishing micro perimeters within the network to minimize the blast radius if there were to be some sort of a breach or attack. And least privilege was a critical component back then, and it's still very much a critical component today. And then you have technologies like multi-factor authentication, authorization and authentication at the identity level is very critical to zero trust security programs. And then, managing the devices that they're accessing corporate drives and systems from as well. So it's zero trust is not something that can be solved by any individual technology vendor. It requires different solutions. It requires process to be established, having the right people, process, and technology in place to really, truly try to achieve that zero trust approach. So when we look at the next phase of zero trust, in order to mitigate an attack and enable business continuity, organizations, they need to introduce a new guiding principle. Again, we're calling it zero trust data access that goes deeper beyond the stack. We're going beyond the identity layer, beyond the identity, the network and device layers, and introducing granular data access controls across all of the different SaaS applications that are being utilized by the business to help drive the business forward. And in doing that, you're going to experience a more complete zero trust architecture, again, through these deeper levels of security controls throughout these applications that are being leveraged by the business. So this is at the highest level, kind of the next phase of zero trust. Again, I want to reiterate that most companies already have technologies in place that help support this concept of zero trust, but it's an ever-evolving program. And the data access element is something that we are very much focused on here at DoControl. And on the slide is a quote from Forrester. So access control technologies are critical, as is where they would and should apply to a zero trust approach. To keep things as simple as possible, command and control over who has access or who accesses the network and ultimately the data is key to zero trust, period. So data access, the data access controls, the policies, the policy engine. Towards the end of the webinar, we're going to spend a bit more detail on those topics. But again, the important piece here is the access control side of things. So when we look at the current state, identity is the new perimeter, right? Most organizations have identity solutions in place, whether it's an IDP, identity and access management, a combination of tools and technologies that help secure access at the identity level. So within each organization, you have different users. You have standard business users, you have privileged users, you have application owners, you have administrators, you have all these different personas and identities. Organizations need to establish permissions and entitlements and privileges to each of those identities and the different accounts, applications, and services they need in order to do their job. So again, least privilege is a critical component to this, and giving your employees the ability to do their job effectively, but you're not over giving them too many permissions or too much access that they require, because that obviously creates an attack vector or widens the attack vector. So that's the first logical component. The next piece is zero trust network access. So you have these identities, you've secured the access and created controls around access at the identity level, but you now need to provide a secure connection to those identities from the different devices and endpoints that they're trying to connect to, corporate drives and applications within the actual IT estate of the organization. It needs to be a secure connection. So that's where organizations like, again, Beyond Corp Enterprise, Perimeter 81, Cato Networks, Duo, again, these ZTNA solutions are a critical piece to a modern zero trust architecture. Now, the challenge that we help solve for is once you get past those two components, you then have access to all of the different applications that are being utilized by the business. And even if you have established, user-based access controls at the identity level, you lose the ability to control, the specific files and data that exists within those applications. And if you look at the right-hand side of the graphic, you have a number of different identities. You have current employees, you have former employees, you have remote vendors, third-party contractors, so on and so forth. So it's really challenging for organizations to tackle this via a homegrown tool or solution that they try to develop on their own. Doing it manually is extremely difficult. And then when you look at each of the individual SaaS application vendors, they all have some native features and functionality to mitigate the risk from data overexposure, data exfiltration, cyber breaches, so on and so forth. So there's no consistent way to enforce data access control policies across all of these different disparate applications that the business is using. So it's a big challenge. Most organizations, large and small, have some mix of SaaS applications that they're using. I think the business has understood the benefits that are provided by not only SaaS, but all the different as-a-service solutions that are out there, specifically SaaS. Again, the productivity and collaboration tools that are available for organizations to leverage. It's an easy business decision, but again, like any solution that is implemented to drive the business forward, you need to consider the security implications that are introduced by bringing in those applications. So that's what we try to solve for, and that is the current state of the way in which most organizations are architected. So what is zero trust data access? We take the principle of least privilege and the concept of micro-segmentation, and we extend it throughout the entire SaaS application environment. And this is one of the most critical data sources for any organization that is trying to align to a zero trust model. And within our zero trust data access solution, we have 3 pillars. So that's what we're going to cover in this slide and the subsequent slide here. The first pillar is continuous monitoring. So the DoControl solution it's an event-driven platform. So what that means is we're subscribed to all the internal and external user activity and events, SaaS asset metadata, and then data enrichments across all of these different interconnected integrations from your IDP solution, from your EDR solution, from your HR applications. And then all of these data points are collected and we combine them to enable deep micro-segmentation across multiple levels. So it's the users, it's the assets, the groups, the employment status, the domains, so on and so forth. And we keep a real-time inventory of all of the SaaS ecosystem's metadata without actually having to replicate and store the SaaS hosted data. So it's an event-driven platform. It's completely agentless. We then aggregate all the critical SaaS app metadata sources, and it allows us to provide a clear view. So good, strong visibility across all the identities and assets, both inside and external to the organization. And when we get to the demonstration, Lewis will show some of these things. And this insight, it feeds into our ability to continuously monitor all the activity, which again is a critical preventative control to a zero trust program. So the next pillar, least privilege, I mentioned earlier, this is a core element to zero trust. And based on the inventory and the data enrichments, the DoControl solution will continually revoke data access in real time to achieve the least privilege model at scale. And users can then share or request access in a just-in-time manner to the very same data over and over so that business enablement continues the way that it should. And we integrate, again, with your most critical SaaS applications, and we provide very consistent and granular data access controls that are easily customizable and can be applied to all the different organizational departments that are synced from your HR SaaS application, again, or your IDP solution. Enforcing the principle of least privilege at the identity layer is not enough. You need to go deeper down the stack. And again, when we get to the use case solution demonstration, when we start to talk about creating secure workflows and defining policies that will allow that granular level least privileged access that goes beyond, again, the identity layer. So the third pillar and last component here is automation. So we offer automated workflows, which are, again, powered through this comprehensive micro-segmentation around the users, the collaborators, the assets, and the groups that we hook into. And these workflows are not opinionated, they're not hard-coded, which is certainly the case with a CASB solution, but they're highly flexible, they're highly customizable, and they can be triggered based on any end user activity or event that takes place. And we can automatically identify any anomalous event or activity. So we're able to establish a baseline of what is considered to be, normalized activity. And that, again, gives you a good insight into your user behavior. And then you can, again, create policies and workflows that will automatically remediate certain events and activities. But it's not all about automation, right? I think a lot of organizations, especially the security teams, will agree that not everything should be automated. You need to leave certain workflows and instances up for manual intervention and enable the IT and security team to take appropriate action. Not everything should be automated, but those things that you consider to be extremely high risk, you can automatically remediate that risk through the secure workflows and policies that you define. And again, we're gonna show some of that when we get to the solution demo. So how does it work? So to recap, it's completely agentless. It's an event-driven platform. We're using the SaaS applications as metadata sources that we ingest into the DoControl platform. It's all achieved via webhooks and APIs. There's no agents. And we're aggregating all the different events that are taking place within your SaaS environment. And by having those events fed into the system, that is where you're going to define and establish those data access control, secure workflows and policies, which again are fed into your existing security investments. So we're adding value into the investments you've already made. It's almost a bidirectional data feed in some instances where we're connecting into your IDP to capture the different domains, identities, groups, so on and so forth. Same with HR applications. If there's an employment change and an employee has been terminated, or if they've put their notice in, we're able to ingest that information and then trigger, again, those secure workflows to ensure that there's no accidental data leakage, or it could be with malicious intent where somebody takes with them confidential or proprietary information as they leave the business. So we're providing foundational zero trust data access controls. We're providing full visibility across all SaaS access for every identity and entity, both inside and outside. So that's your internal users as well as your external, vendors, third-party vendors as well. And it's throughout the entire organization. So you have strong visibility at the identity and the actual asset level. We provide continuous monitoring across all the events and activities, and we allow for that baseline understanding of what is considered to be, normal actions and normal activity. We can automatically identify malicious activity across any of these events that take place. And then again, really the core of it is those granular data access control policies that enable consistent enforcement of least privilege across all of the different SaaS applications that are being leveraged by the business. And then lastly, the automation, right? So automatically triggering workflows based on the end user activity that is then matched against that microsegmentation of those users, groups, assets, domain, so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and hand things over to Lewis to provide a solution demonstration and show some of these use cases that we just mentioned. So Lewis, over to you.
Okay, let me see. So let me just give you a quick, background. So as Corey mentioned, I'm Lewis Miller, and I'm Principal Solutions Architect at DoControl. And you know what? Let me share my screen here, and we'll jump right into the demo in a minute. So we have a wonderful team here at DoControl, and I personally have over 20 years of experience in the enterprise software industry, including AppSec at Synopsys, privacy at Big ID, and in my role at DoControl, I help clients like you, the members of our audience, integrate and provide value, prove the value of our platform, along with a team that includes software engineers, data scientists, and client success managers. And so I'll present some of the use cases that Corey discussed regarding zero trust data access control. But keep in mind that you can also schedule a live demo at DoControl.io if you'd like to get a more customized presentation of our platform for your organization. Really excited to show you our platform today. So let's jump right over to the, let me see, am I sharing the right screen here? Let's jump right over to the UI. And then I can show you the, show you the platform. So, okay, so you should be able to see my my screen right now.
Yep, you're all good. We can see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wasn't sure sometimes, with the screen sharing. Okay, so great. Great place to start is from the beginning on the integration screen. So in terms of the integrations, connecting is just a matter of a couple of minutes, a few clicks, and you're done. We're just going to fetch the API access token with the appropriate privileges. And our manual has detailed information on what privileges you need, so you can just give us the minimum that's necessary. And we're completely agentless, unlike many of the other products out there. We have support for all of the major SaaS applications that support collaborative file sharing, like Google Drive, Microsoft SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, Box, Dropbox, Slack, plus your IDP like Okta, HR, Source, SIM, EDR like CrowdStrike, and excuse me, Slack. Also, you can use for event reporting. You can also use your email. And we also have a self-service approval with our Slack bot known as DoBot. And so I'll demonstrate all of that, but you can see here all of the different categories of apps. And once you are connected, or once your applications are connected, we'll start collecting events. And you can actually see them as they're coming in here. And this is going to, first of all, give us an insight into what what your various assets are, and then on an ongoing basis, we're going to be able to monitor all of the various activities on your apps. So things like file sharing, creating files, deleting files, and so on. So one of the categories that Corey mentioned is the continuous monitoring. So DoControl has built in the intelligence to surface unusual activity and alert your security team while minimizing the noise and information overload. And that's very important, because if you get, too much information, people start ignoring it. I'll use an example that I've heard in the past, where someone has a DLP solution, but they don't turn on enforcement because so they're getting the activity, and there's a lot of it there, and then they don't even turn on the enforcement because it gets in the way of business processes. So that's what we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And now that we've got the events coming in, we can start taking a look at the inventory. So that'll tell you, who are your users, right? And users are, of course, your internal team within your organization. I should say all of the employees of your organization who have access to your apps. Then you have members, and those are external users that actually have been invited to collaborate with your team. So that could be, vendors or clients, that need to maybe, sign NDAs or whatever. And then you have collaborators, and those are actually external accounts that your users are sharing with. So for instance, you may have, sharing with, Gmail accounts or, Hotmail. So the nice thing here is that you can, focus on, very specific users and what they're doing. So for instance, here, let's take a look at, Adam, our company CEO. You can see what he has access to. So all of the various apps that he's been given access to, the assets that he's either the owner or is able to access, because he's a member of a team that has the ability to view a particular shared drive, or someone has shared directly using a link. And if we scroll down, you can actually see the individual events that are tied to Adam. And if you want to dig deeper, you can look at the JSON, and this is the information that's actually coming in to DoControl from your SaaS applications, and is the basis of the alerts and the workflows. So really, the trigger of the workflows is all based on the information in your incoming events. Now, in addition, you can look at assets directly. And here's where you have a lot of so big part of this this portion is in terms of visibility, but you can also do on-demand enforcement. So you can see your assets in Google Drive and Slack. I should mention, GitHub is one of those applications where you want to know, for instance, did someone maybe create a repo that is public but is really meant to be private, and that has your intellectual property, all of your private information. You don't want that to be exploited, and you can go in and you can look at any of these. So your Slack, your GitHub, and I'll demonstrate a little bit. So here you can see, private, repos, public repos, and so on. Now let's take a look at some use cases. What can you do with this beyond just knowing, what's out there, right? So we do have these filters, and let's say, for instance, you wanted to on demand remove external collaborators. So what I'll do is I'm going to add, and you can add multiple filters here. What I'll do first is I'm going to start with the group. And by the way, you see groups in the inventory. Our groups can be based on your Google groups, the ones that you have in your Microsoft, your HR system, your Okta, and you can even have custom groups set up within DoControl that can include wildcards, for instance, domains or individual users, which you generally don't have that in your Google Drive or your HR system. So let's say I want to take a look at files shared publicly by the finance department. And here I can, maybe select my finance group in Okta. And, just for, good measure, I'll even select the group from my Bamboo HR. Click on apply. And what am I really interested in here? I'm interested in those. So finance deals with very sensitive data, but I really want to know, are they sharing anything publicly, right? So I can go into the sharing status and then click on public. And you can, again, you could do multiple statuses here. So you could do public and external, but let's just focus on public for a minute here. And now I have all of those assets that are shared publicly by finance. And these could be potentially very sensitive files. So maybe I want to select all of them. And then with a click of a button, I can remove the public sharing. If we were looking at externally shared files with specific collaborators, we could remove the external collaborators. We could even change ownership. In this case, we want to remove public sharing. We associate this with a policy. So that will enable us to do more than just remove the sharing. It'll also enable us to do notifications if you want, and so on. And if I click on trigger policy, then it'll remove the public sharing. Look at another use case. So Google Drive, does have a little bit of controls around, whether you allow your organization to share publicly or not. But the problem is that generally users need to do that public sharing, or some type of sharing, and you don't want to get in the way of the business. So DoControl will actually allow you to do that in a much more granular way. Now let's take a look at Slack. So Slack is not an application that people think of first when they think of file sharing, but often members of your team will share either internally or with users, let's say in a different organization, maybe a customer of yours that you have a shared channel with, right? And you can see here, we can see all of the channels, and you can even select which channels are visible to DoControl. So if you wanted to not monitor certain channels, you have the ability to do that. But what I've heard from people is that a lot of times they will share even just to do a file transfer between let's say their phone and their laptop, or any type of sharing in Slack. Usually, maybe at the most, you want it to be shared for 24 hours, right? And the problem is that in general, people don't remove those files. The administrators have no visibility into what files are out there. So let's take a really, really good example. Let's say someone shared an SSL certificate, right? You don't want that to live there where eventually it could be exposed. That could cause very serious problems for your entire organization, depending on the certificate. So let's say we want to just see if there are any PEM files. And by the way, in my last role, sharing certificates on Slack was pretty common, right? And you should always delete it. It's good practice, but we don't want to rely on manual processes. So here we did find one PEM file. Again, select it. And with the press of a button, I can delete that file from Slack. Great. So, so here you've seen, visibility and sort of on the fly enforcement. And then what we want to do is we want to also talk about, least privilege policies. So we have policies, and these are basically workflows. We have a new version of these coming out soon. So these will all be called workflows. But basically, you can start from a template to create a policy that will govern your sharing. And we have a lot of different use cases here: temporary external sharing, denying public sharing, or even, let's say, an approval. So hey, did you really mean to to do this sharing? So so you can click on any of these, and that will provide a starting point. So let's say if you wanted to do temporary external sharing, click here, and then you're going to have a template, and you can actually fill in the details, and you can add as much in terms of action steps as you would like. So for instance, let's say you wanted to let's say if your backend developers shared something, you can not only use groups, but you could type in individual users. You can exclude certain users or groups. So let's say just use some examples here. And another thing that you can do here is, let's see, you can also determine, the policy based on your targets. You can select which apps you want this policy to apply to, or you can do all of them. And what I'll do is I'm going to go into some real world examples. If you want to look at our workflows, again, we have start from playbook or start from scratch. And this will actually give you a way of dragging and dropping. So let's say prevent public sharing, and you have a trigger, and you can literally select just about any type of event that is coming in from your applications. Okay, so let's show a couple of real world examples. So the first one I'm going to show you is removing public sharing. So I have a policy that I've already defined. Now let's say so here the default is to notify the security team. And you see here we have a number of different notification options. You can email the actor or a specific individual. You can use a webhook. You can notify on a Slack channel or Teams, the enforcement step. But you may want to say, let's say this is for the marketing group, marketing team. And perhaps, they need to legitimately, share information. So you may want to wait. Let's say we want to allow the marketing group to share for 30 days. Then maybe we want to notify the actor. Here we'll just do, and maybe then wait an additional day. And then ask them again, do you want to continue sharing? And then if they do, they can, they'll get a message from the DoBot in Slack, and they can continue sharing or decide not to. Oh, and one more thing is, let's say you want to specifically look at the file contents, which we can do on the fly. So we don't scan your files, except when this sharing is done. If you enable PII, then you can say, let's say this is coming from the finance team. You don't want you want a different policy. Let's say if there's information like, the bank account number or or a credit card or debit card number, or if you're in the healthcare industry, PHI, personal health information. Okay. And then we'll look at one more policy, and then I'll actually show you this in action very quickly. So here's a policy to control external sharing. You can see here that we've put in some email addresses already, including a wildcard for Gmail. I can actually define a group, and DoControl actually comes with this private accounts group predefined with some of the private account domains. So you could actually use that. And again, you could exclude certain users, like maybe your or domains. So there's a lot of flexibility here. Okay, so now let's say I've defined my policies, and we want to see them in action. So I'm going to do two things here. One is to let me see, to share publicly. And Corey and Sam, do we have time, or should I switch it back over to you?
Yeah, Lewis, go ahead. I think we have. Okay. We're going to wrap after the demo, so go ahead. And
okay. Okay. Great. So here, for instance, I can make this this file publicly, accessible. So I'm going to change this to anyone with the link, right? So in Google Drive, that means it's publicly accessible. And then one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share it with my private account, right? So my Gmail, which happens to be Floodgator here. I'm sure I'll get a lot of emails after this. And, Gmail will ask, are you sure you want to share? Okay. Now in my policies, I have notifications set up. I have approval set up for business enablement. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at at whether I've gotten any messages from my DoControl bot. And this is a really nice bot, and it basically will ask you, do you want to continue the file sharing? Looks like there it goes. Okay, so here we are. So hey, you shared with with this private account. There's a policy here. Do you want to keep the share or remove the share? And maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I want to remove the share. The nice thing here is that you're not going to have to go back to the security team, which may not have the context to make this decision. And remember, this could be an important sharing. Maybe there's a sale on the line, and you have to get you have to get the paperwork through. And if you can't access that, it could put things in jeopardy. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then your security team will be, monitoring, a channel or multiple channels that you've set up to get these events. And you can see here that the remove public share, which was meant to take place instantly, actually happened. And so here you've got an alert that someone tried to publicly share. Don't worry, it was removed, but you may want to know about this. The other thing is that the personal accounts policy was triggered, and again the sharing was removed. So if I go back into my my file here, you can see that first that my email is not here, and second that the sharing is back to restricted. So that's what I want to show you in terms of the 3 pillars of zero trust data access control. So continuous monitoring, providing visibility into your data assets, anomaly detection, alerts. least privilege, whether it's on demand or automated, and it's customized based on your internal teams and who they're sharing with. One of the important things here is that, you may have an employee who left, but before they left, they shared with a number of people, and your onboarding process is great, and your offboarding, you remove the user, but anyone who they shared still has access, and DoControl can take care of that. And the automation, so that your security team can really focus on what matters. So with that said, back over to you, Corey.
Thanks, Lewis. Let me just share my screen again really quickly and try to be respectful for everybody's time. All right, so I just wanted to quickly emphasize, again, there are now, and they've been out for quite some time, but there are now reference architectures that help organizations create their own security programs that align to this concept of zero trust. The NIST 800-207 framework is one of them. There's a section that is entirely dedicated on data access policies and the policy engine. Again, we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to emphasize that access controls and data access are a logical component of these modern reference architectures for zero trust. So this is something that if you're not considering with your current program, that you should look closely into. And obviously DoControl is here to partner with you to add value and to bolster your existing zero trust architecture. So just wanted to do a quick recap. So we're providing a single security strategy that centralizes the enforcement of least privilege beyond the identity, network, and device levels throughout an organization's entire estate of SaaS applications. And with that, just wanted to leave you with this screen here. If you're interested in seeing, some use cases that are more applicable to your organization, if you want to have a meeting with us, if you want to request a demo, visit our website, docontrol.io/demo, and we can give you a risk analysis that your organization is faced with in terms of SaaS security. Okay, so Sam, I know we're a bit over time here, but were there any questions that we wanted to go through?
Excuse me. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And also just one clarification on the risk assessment. The way it works is, we'd go ahead and you guys would plug in your apps and you'd be able to see right then and there, see the dashboard, all the stats and everything. So it's pretty cool to get that immediate who's sharing what. If you want to remediate, we can talk about that. Excuse me. So there are, I see 2 questions in here. So we'll just, they look pretty quick. So let's just get these questions and then we'll be done. One is, and I think maybe you mentioned a couple, but which other apps are supported in DoControl?
Sure. I can take that one. So actually, let me just do a quick screen share here. And Lewis spent a minute covering this. If we go over to the integration section, so really we've prioritized all the critical SaaS applications that our customers are leveraging. So we've started with the most obvious ones, across Google and Microsoft, but also you have different collaboration tools, communication tools, CRM, HR. Again, they're all listed here. I think Lewis did a good job kind of providing an overview of this, and onboarding the applications is very easy. We have to request permissions for us to take enforcement action, but it's a very simple and streamlined process. And again, we've really focused and prioritized on the applications that are most commonly used by businesses today. That said, if there's applications that our customers want us to provide support for, then we'll add them. So that's kind of where we are in terms of application support.
Great. And then the last question was, are there existing policy templates that can be used? If you don't want to create your own.
Absolutely. So that was one of the things that I, was showing. But basically, there's we have quite a few. I don't remember how many, but maybe 20, somewhere around there, different templates, and we're adding more for use cases all the time. So here's the thing: it's really, we want to make DoControl as easy for our customers to use as possible. A lot of our customers actually, define the policies themselves. Starting off with a template, I showed that you can also create from scratch. But when we do a proof of value, or an onboard customer, where our team, including the data scientists, including the engineers, we are here to assist you in any way that you need to make sure that you are satisfying the use cases and enforcing the policies that are important to your organization.
Okay. Just double check. Yeah, that was it for questions. So thank you very much. Our next webinar is probably going to be in the beginning of February. We will be putting that up next couple of days. And until then, see you guys. Stay safe, have fun. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Take care.